88D Wired Gaming.
I think it was 2016 I graduated. I think I was like 24, 25 at the time when I graduated college. Finally, I had gotten my bachelor's degree in political science and minored in health. So, oh boy, jeez. So yeah, I had gotten my bachelor's degree in political science because it was the easiest diploma I could get without doing any major weird assignments like chemistry, anatomy, etc., etc. I was going to go for hospitality, but I ended up changing that to health. But then health required things like chemistry, anatomy, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, just forget that. So political science ended up being it because it was the majority of history. And history is pretty easy to remember. So finally, I graduate and I get my first job. And it was as the graveyard shift. So I worked the graveyard shift at a store in Texas called HGB. Here, everything is better. It was fine. Paid $15 an hour. I was happy with it. I liked it because it was very physically demanding. And the way I saw it was, any job that's physically demanding like this is going to keep me in shape, and I will be able to use it to my benefit. The negative, I couldn't handle the sleep schedule because my parents had relied on me so much during the day that after an exhausting night of physically demanding work doing the graveyard shift, I would be too exhausted to help my parents. I became dysfunctional during the day. And now I understand, obviously, why it was called the graveyard shift. So I had let the manager know I had to change, and he put me in the dairy department. So I became one of the guys who was in charge of making sure you got your eggs, you got your yogurt, you got your juice and milk, all that good stuff, without it being spoiled. Now, here's the interesting part. The location I had worked at had gotten numerous health code violations for their dairy department. I had to pick up everybody's slack. And after a month there, I finally gotten to the point where I could start getting employee discounts on specific items I purchased. But here's the thing. There was a specific policy, a coupon policy, that I was completely unaware of. Basically saying that if any customer had left a coupon behind, you were to throw it away immediately. If you tried to use that coupon, it would be considered theft and stealing from the store. I did not know about this policy. So when I let somebody know I had done that because I thought it was a really awesome opportunity. Oh look, somebody left a coupon. Get a free $5 tub of ice cream? Awesome, let me get that. You could see the gears in this guy's head turning because I was such a hard worker. After 1 month, even the entire manager, like the so they're like, I call them the big three, right? Big three. There were the three major managers of each department. There was the grocery manager, the manager of the entire store, and then the sub-manager, the guy who worked beneath the guy who in charge of the entire store. The grocery manager loved me because I would be able. So here are the things that they did not do that got them to health code violation. So there's something called Save the Eggs, where so far if you found a styrofoam container of eggs like Eggland's Best, if it had a cracked egg, you were to take that cracked egg, throw it away, wipe out the container thoroughly and wash it. And then you take an egg from another container of eggs that had a better date, put that one egg in that slot, and then you put that back on the shelf to resell. I think that's a disgusting process, but that's basically what they called saving the eggs, and it's basically reselling broken product, basically. So I did that extremely efficiently. I also got so efficient in stocking the shelves, the dairy, and all that stuff that I had time to clean the floor at the end of every day, which you were supposed to be doing, but nobody ever did. So I got proficient enough where I could have at least 2 hours free at the end of my shift to do all this extra stuff that nobody ever did that got them to health code violation. So once I started getting good at saving the eggs and everything, I started cleaning the floor. And the first time I pulled those shelves out to clean under them, oh my God, there was rotten milk, like just milk, disgusting, coagulated, rock solid to the concrete underneath these shelves. And then there was not only milk, but egg that had become rock solid, condensed, nasty, disgusting. It's amazing they didn't get shut down. It was just bad. I had to use this giant ass scraper to scrape the concrete to get this stuff off. But yeah, I basically became their loved employee. I made even the managers look bad because of my work effort. And the one guy, once he caught my little slip up, was like, "This is my chance to get rid of him. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to write him up completely, give him a total full-blown down write down, and basically tell him, you only have two options: get fired, or you get put on this extreme probation where you're heavily monitored for 2 weeks. And you cannot slip up during that 2 weeks or you will immediately get fired." So in that moment, I'm just immediately left with one option. Go fuck yourself. I'm out. I'm not going to have that permanently written on my record where every time I try to go to somewhere else to get a job interview, they're going to see this and say, "Oh, well, this guy's just a thief. Why are we going to hire him?" Fuck you. I'm not going to fall for that. So I left. I wrote immediately the shitty version. Actually, no. I went back to tell the manager I quit. And he wasn't there anymore. He was gone, like he had bailed. So the following morning, first thing I did, the second the doors were open, I walked in and I told the second head manager, "I'm done." And he was like, "Oh, well, you should let it play out. I don't think anything." No, I'm not going to have my permanent... If you're going to say this thing's going to be permanently on my record every time I go somewhere else for a job interview, if I quit this job, then I'm not doing that. So he said, "Okay, well, we're going to have you write a resignation letter." I'm like, "Okay, fine, whatever." Gave me a shitty blank piece of paper, and I just wrote my resignation. I gave every example of how the managers of the shift manager, how the shift managers would leave their work for me to deal with, and then I would have to pick up their slack on top of doing my shift work, and then on top of doing that, I had to do the whole closing out and everything at the end of the day. And I still kicked ass at it. They could not weigh me down with no matter how much work they put on top of me. It just meant I was like, "Okay, say less. I'm going to kick your ass anyway through my work effort and make you look like crap." So I write my resignation letter, big old resignation letter. I write how shitty everybody was, how much everybody sucked. You just suck, basically. And I was proud of myself for not letting for the first time in my life, I felt like I was not manipulated. Because throughout life, as as I get to this age, at this age, I'm probably a proud 24, right? At this job, I'm 24, 25. My first job ever, and I'm at 24, 25 years old because I was so focused on my education. And I write this resignation letter. I give it to him, and I walked out. And my dad's waiting for me as I'm walking out, and he's looking at the manager. And as we left the entire shopping center, he whispers to my ear, "You should have seen that guy's face. He was pissed." And I'm like, "Oh no, am I in trouble?" He's like, No, you don't get it. You don't understand. He was pissed because he just lost a fantastic employee, and now he got to find somebody to replace you, to find somebody who had the same work ethic, if anything like that, anything comparable. And he had to try to replace that, and he just lost it because some other manager thought it was a good idea to do this, and instead of just giving you a slap on the wrist and saying, "Look, you clearly didn't know. Don't fucking do it again. You fucked up once. This is all I'm going to tell you. Never let it happen again." Any good manager would have done that. But this guy had a vendetta against me, so he wrote me up. And so I quit this job. So, in the whole process of me getting this job, graduating college, I'm starting to take up, so my next job is my longest lasting job. It lasted for, if you hear my phone vibrating, it's everybody on Discord talking. My next job lasted 6 months. I got a job as a membership salesman at Gold Gym. I wanted to be a personal trainer because I had, in the time between, okay, my phone is driving me nuts. I'm just going to throw that over there. In the time between the last job and this job, I had been getting certified under NASM. If you don't know what NASM is the National Academy of Sports Medicine. I had gotten my CPT there, and I had gotten certified through AED and CPR by this other company. I can't remember what it was, but basically when I started working here, I had gotten certified as a personal trainer, and then I also had 3 specialist certifications. One was like youth exercise fitness specialist, senior fitness specialist, and then I believe it was women's weight loss specialist. So I had gotten those 3. I had been selling membership for 6 months under them, and I was certified under NASM. So I knew my stuff now. And when I got certified under NASM, when I tell you I thought I knew stuff before NASM, I took NASM and then I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. So it really broadened my horizon and really opened my eyes to how little I actually knew about fitness. So if you're not certified and you think you know stuff, you might know some stuff, but you don't know stuff. If that makes any sense. So from HEB to Gold Gym, for those 6 months at Gold Gym, I was one of the best employees they could have ever had. Every place I worked, I was pretty much their best employee. So the manager, sadly, at Gold Gym, the manager, when I was working there, awesome guy named Colin. So sadly though, the owner of the franchise thought it was necessary to move the managers around locations. So Colin got shifted to another location, and then another location gym manager named Pam got shifted to our location. And Pam was the Wicked Witch of Gold Gym. Had the most fake bleach white smile you could ever see. Had the most thickest layer of spray tan you could ever imagine. As well as probably getting regularly tanned in a tan bed because her skin was wrinkled like you would not believe because of over tanning. She was pretty much more orange than Donald Trump. And that's not me being political. Donald Trump is just an orange. This woman was like golden orange or even worse than that. And she was just ruthless, cold-hearted. She basically forced everybody who was working there under Colin to quit so she could hire people that she liked. And I was the last to go. She got everybody else to quit, but I was the last one to go. The people she newly hired were all stoners. Like, and this is where I had my first little puff of weed. So, everybody she hired was a stoner. So they all came in smelling like cotton candy, bubble gum, and all that kind of stuff because they couldn't hide the smell of weed. So finally, I discover that they're all just stoners. The one guy, my coworker, who would disappear for hours and hours, I didn't care that he disappeared. It made my life better because he was gone. He couldn't sell membership. So while he's off getting stoned and getting the munchies and eating, I was able to sell membership and also enjoy my workout in peace. So I got to sell more membership, and then he's complaining that I'm stealing his sales because he's disappearing and getting high. So I'm just thinking one of these days, you know what? Let me give it a try. I took one puff of this guy's weed and I had a fishbowl on my head for an hour, and it was weird. I did not mind it, but at the same time it was like, this just ain't my cup of tea. So finally Pam had pushed me to the brink. Pam got me to quit at Gold Gym. Everybody who was working there loved me because I would pick up slack. I would do what other people would not. When she didn't want to come in, I would basically be able to run the entire location without her there. She could lean on me like that. But she forced me to quit. So she was walking a nice double-edged sword there. Anyway, so I finally quit 20 Gold Gym, and I move on to my biggest next mistake, 24-hour fitness. So, for anybody who knows the controversy about 24-hour fitness, 24-hour fitness went through a huge, not bankruptcy, but some kind of huge scandal where their members, even though they changed cards and everything, were still getting charged membership fees. And there was a huge lawsuit about it. This new location had opened up, was getting built and opened, and they were looking for new hires. I jumped on the wagon immediately, but they said this. So basically, we have a different level system of personal trainer. Level 1 personal trainer get this much money per hour. Level 2 get this much money per hour. Level 3 get this much money per hour. And then you're like a fitness manager, and then you're like the top manager. I wanted the level 3 because it paid $24 an hour. Beautiful amount of money at the time. This is before COVID still. So but they said you were lacking 2 certifications. So I got to 2 certification. One was MMA conditioning, and then I can't remember the 5th one, but I got my 5 specialist certifications, my regular CPT, and my CPR certification under these, and I met the requirement to get the level 3 personal trainer position, and it allowed me to get $24 an hour. Here's the thing though. As soon as we opened, the first week, fantastic. I got my $24 an hour after 1 week. Right? Week 2, in week 2, basically, they cut my pay in half. So I went from $24 an hour to $12.50 an hour. Right? Week 3? Oh my God. What happens? They cut my pay again to the lowest you could pay someone at the time, which was $7.50 an hour. That's very start of the 3rd week. I said in a resignation letter, basically, in the nicest way possible, you can go fuck yourselves, find somebody else, I'm done. And I quit. Because there was a consistency. They only brought me on to basically help fill up, to help manage the total influx of new members and everything at the time. And then when I had people coming to sign up with me to do personal training, they had me TO in case I couldn't completely close the deal. And TO means turnover. So basically, I would start it here. And if I struggled to close the deal here, I would TO it to the head guy, and he would close it there. But he never closed it. He basically just allowed them to go, well, if I do this, this, and this, wouldn't it work out? And he's like, well, yeah, I guess so. And then basically the guy would leave. I would not get my sale, and I would not get my membership, my personal training money. So I was basically just wandering there for 2 weeks doing nothing. Did I get to make use of the equipment? Absolutely. Boy, howdy, did I make use of that exercise equipment. But at the same time, they cheated me in every way possible. And pretty much right after that point, I started to get the idea, maybe I should start training for a marathon. I want to be one of those types to say, oh yeah, I did a marathon. Ooh boy. Boink, 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 boink. So yeah, I wanted to be one of the people who said, oh yeah, I did one. And just be done with it. I started training for that sucker. And in the process, I'm still looking for my 3rd job. I started training and I just thought, no way. So I thought there was just no way. Like, how the hell does somebody do this? So I gave up on that. I had already signed up, but I gave up. I quit. I had just started running. I was running at 9 minutes 30 seconds a mile, and I was not doing good. I was miserable. I hated it. And basically with 8 weeks before the marathon, or the half marathon at the time, I'm like, I'm going to do this. So for 2 weeks, right? For 2 weeks, I ran 3, oh my goodness. For 2 weeks, I ran 3 miles. Right? And then I would rest 1 day, basically. For the next 2 weeks, I would run 6 miles. Right? You can see the cycle here. For the next 2 weeks, I ran 8 miles. For the next 2 weeks. And then for that final 1.5 weeks, I ran 10 miles a day for the last 2 weeks. So this was my workout regimen for the half marathon training. My goal was to finish in under 2 hours. Right? I wanted to finish it in under 2 hours. I had done the half marathon in 1 hour, 58 minutes, and some change. I had done what I set my mind to. Then I signed up for the Chevron Houston Marathon. When I say I was severely underestimating the capabilities it takes to do a marathon, I mean I was severely underestimating it. So it is, I feel like a below 30. I think to feel like with 29 degrees. An hour plus before the marathon, I had a heavy breakfast. Eggs, the potatoes, that kind of shit. Bacon. I wanted to load myself up with fuel for the marathon. Big mistake. Big mistake. I start off strong. Mile 4 comes around. Oh. Somebody just stabbed me in the kidney with a knife. I had the biggest cramping at mile 4. I was reduced to walking. I finally digest enough to where the cramping stopped. And I pick up the pace. Mile 11, 12, 13. Okay. Hard, but I am managing. Mile 18 comes around. The big 18. This is what separates the men from the boys. Mile 18. You hit the fucking wall. And when I say hit the wall, I mean you are not stopping. You are crashing into that and you are praying you keep your balance. Because that brick wall will slam into you if you don't slam into it. So, at mile 18, I break down. I am physically in pain. My knees are shot. My mind is reeling. I am thinking every negative hope on the planet, basically. It's not even a positive hope. It is purely negative. I sit on the curb and I am on the verge of tears. I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to call my dad saying I'm going to have an ambulance take me to a medical tent and I am done. I can't do it. And my dad just simply said, "Don't be a bitch." He said, "You are too fucking stubborn, too persistent to let yourself quit now. You only have 8.2 miles. At this point, it was actually 8 miles because I was just a little bit past mile 18. He said, "You have 8 miles left. you're gonna fucking finish this. Because if you do not finish this, you are gonna beat the shit out of yourself for the rest of your life. You will ride your own ass every single day for not finishing. So complain all you want, but you're finishing this marathon. And he was right. I stayed on the phone with him. I complained. I moaned. I whined. I was a little bitch baby. But then mile 18 became mile 19, right? And then all of a sudden, mile 19 became mile 20. And at mile 20, you know what they had? Oh, every runner's dream. Beer. They had free handouts of beer at mile 20. I got a pick me up. I didn't care about the pain anymore. I saw that little half glass, maybe 6 ounces of blonde light beer, and I saw heaven. I was like, give me the beer, take the pain away. Because I am dehydrated, I am in pain, all this kind of stuff, and this beer is going to take the edge off. It didn't, but it gave me a placebo. Mile 21 approaches. It gets a little harder. Inclines are starting to get worse. Mile 22. The incline is even worse. I'm reduced to walking again. I'm cramping. My legs are screaming. I am covered in sweat, and it is still just above freezing. It is 34 degrees at this point. The sun's out. It's blaring, but it is not warming you up. You're covered in sweat. There's a little wind chill, and it is bad. Mile 23. Finally, the inclines have leveled out. It is bearable. And soon enough, mile 23 became mile 24. Finally, this is where you start seeing ambulances ride by. There are ambulances riding by slowly to pick up runners who are quitting at this far into the race. You're this far in, and there are people laying on the ground who just can't do it, giving up, and they have their lights flashing and everything. But this is where the most people are cheering. There are so many people, so many power-up signs. And if you're wondering what the hell a power-up sign is, it's basically somebody who got a poster board. It got a big, explosion deal going on there. And then in the middle, it is Toad Duel. It is basically the big mushroom cap with the 2 little lines for eyes and then the dot. And it says, slap for power. And you know what the fuck anybody is doing seeing this sign. They slapped the shit out of that sign, and they are getting their power up to carry them through that final 2 miles. And at this point, my only thought is, I gotta conserve myself for a strong finish. Finally, mile 24 becomes, well, that's just horrible. But finally, mile 24 becomes 25, right? And then 26. 0.2 miles left, right? Finally, we're in the last stretch. You see just a long row of giant buildings to your left and right. Just skyscrapers lining each side of the road, basically. You can't not see a building, but there's so many people, so many people. The roads are barricaded on both sides, and you have thousands of runners, half marathoners on one side, full marathoners on the other. Everybody just racing straight for the freaking finish line. Just to finish, just to be done with the torture, just to be done and finally say I did it. that final .1 mile, it's a big sidewinding path, right? Everybody is racing to the finish line. They want to get over that line and get their free beer, get their mug, and just feel good about themselves and say, I fucking did it, right? That's what these people are doing. They are just racing at this point. And if those of you who know, oh, you're saving the last bit of strength you got for this to bull rush with everything you got through that finish line to make it look pretty for that finish photo. And that was my first marathon. It was such an intoxicating experience that I am now working on my 14th marathon. And here's the thing. Growing up, life had been nothing but a physical struggle. I've experienced severe balance problems, severe eyesight, hearing, all this stuff that has made life physically altering. But in growing up, I have learned fitness, for me at least, fitness, I don't know what that is, but fitness, oh man, fitness had been basically, not my saving grace or anything weird like that, but it had basically been the glue to everything. It basically been the missing key, basically. For me, it was the key I've always been looking for. I thought weightlifting was something I was good at. I am good at it. But when it comes down to it, it wasn't about basketball. It wasn't about weightlifting. It wasn't about any other sports I've done growing up in life. It was just fitness as a whole. But a major thing about it was running. So, like I said, at this point I'm about 25 right now. So I finally get a job at a fast food Asian restaurant called Payway. Payway was an awesome little Asian diner that I worked at. I was the guy who put the dishes together. Like, you put the ingredients together and you hand it to the chef and the chef cooks it in the wok. I started off at that, but within a month they already had me learning how to do the wok, and then COVID struck. This is 2019. COVID had finally struck. Everything had gotten shut down. Everything had fallen apart. The world is closing down. Payway, the job that shift managers were saying, the job I was doing take people 6 months to really get the hang of. It only took me a month. They said, dude, you are progressing at an unimaginable rate. And I would get under the grill, literally underneath, to where you could only see my leg sticking out of grill. So basically, here is where the wok burners are. Big pluming fires coming out of all of them, right? Big pluming fires coming out of all of them. All you see when you saw me cleaning under them was my legs sticking out from underneath, because I was the only guy underneath the grill cleaning the char, the grime, the nasty, all of it. I was getting downright dirty with it. And the manager of that restaurant loved it. Could not stop taking pictures of me covered in shit, grime, and overtime, and sending it to her boss and saying, this is the next guy we need. So in just over a month, I was basically in line to becoming a shift manager or a manager. But COVID struck. The restaurant got shut down and it went out of business. I had no employment. Nobody had employment. We got paid. We got basically unemployed payment basically because of COVID. And during this time, I'm still doing marathons. I'm still doing races, all this kind of stuff. And during COVID, I want to say it was 2021. So 2021, I want to say I was 27, 28, right? Yeah, it was in 2021. So because of COVID and everything, I had gone back to anti-chat. So Omega was pretty much gone at this point. It was just it wasn't even any more real people anymore. During COVID, I relied heavily on anti-chat to stay sane, to keep my mind in things, to keep myself feeling a sense of grounding to the world, because everybody was getting depressed, everybody was getting upset, everybody was just falling to pieces because of the shutdown. And all I could do was run in the middle of the night and do this and video games basically. It was phenomenal for my fitness life because it allowed me to exercise so frequently, still getting paid for employment for a job I didn't have, and at the same time it allowed me to to continue working out and everything. So this allowed me to still talk to people, still keep my mind sharp, and in the same process train more and more and more for marathons. And strangely enough, during 2021, I found what I believe was my first love. So in anti-chat, there was this one girl. I'm not gonna say her name or anything for privacy reasons, but at the same time, because I'm not petty, I found her, messaged her, and basically things just took off. We exchanged through text messaging. That's a little wide for a phone, but basically we would talk through anti-chat, through personal messages, all that kind of stuff, direct messages, all that kind of stuff. We would just constantly talk. And let me tell you, at the time, there was pure love in the air. I was happy, I was distracted, and this went on for a year and a half. You couldn't ask for a better situation. You couldn't ask for somebody to keep you more grounded and more sane than this. But this is where things got more complicated. Near 2022, 2023, for 6 months, she got really weird. She stopped texting as much. Typical red flags. She stopped texting as much. She started creating excuses. She wouldn't give me. She would basically do reverse manipulation, reverse narcissism, or not reverse narcissism, but basically it's that situation where you would address a problem you feel uncomfortable with, and then they would find a reason to blame you for it and make you apologize. So basically, there was a situation. There would be, say, for example, one situation I didn't like. I would ask her about it and say, "Can we talk about this?" And then all of a sudden, she would turn it on its head and then make it into a problem that I was causing, that it was my fault, and then in the end, I would end up apologizing for it. And it got really, really, really confusing during this 6 months. I couldn't understand anything. I was just trying to just make sense of it all. Like, why? I thought we had something going on. What? That's just an S. But like, what's going on? Somebody talk to me. Somebody explain. And there were certain red flags. At one point, I asked her sister what's happening, and her sister said, "Oh, she got this weird thing going on with her boyfriend." And I'm like, "Wait, whoa, hold on a second. I thought I was her boyfriend." And I'm trying to be the type of guy who's like giving them the benefit of the doubt. And she's like, "Oh yeah, no, you are. It's just this guy who's her friend." Red flag, immediate red flag. Now that I look back a bit at it, I should have immediately addressed that. I should have been like, we're not letting that slide so easily. And then she got mad that I texted her sister. And obviously red flag number 2. And these red flags just kept piling up. And it finally came to 2023, where I finally discover on her Pinterest, she changed her profile picture. And this girl, let me tell you, this girl in her profile picture, happy as a clam, right? Happy as a clam, happy as any girl could be. But this girl is pregnant. And I mean pregnant. And I'm trying to be the type of guy who is not just immediately accusatory. I'm trying to look at the girl and say, well, maybe I don't know how women gain weight. Maybe this is just weight gain and it's in the stomach area. Because some women gain weight more in the stomach area than in the hips and all that kind of stuff. And that's true because of the way their bodies distribute weight. Like men get more weight gain in their chest and their stomach, but women get it more in their hips and their stomach and their legs. So I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I asked her to explain. No ever real explanation. I showed a picture to my parents, and they finally say, "Oh, dude, without a doubt, she's pregnant." So I look up, because I'm still confused at this point. I'm trying to still I want to be the guy who's just like, I looked for every possible alternative before it was just like, I can't take any other answer but this. So I look up on Google trimesters of pregnancy. She was in her 3rd trimester. So she had been pregnant for 6 months so far. I look up online, all this stuff. And things are starting to piece together. And this is where my uncertainty is becoming. And then finally, so the day ends when I discover this. The next day, I see a post. She changed her Facebook profile picture. And in the comment section, so on Facebook, basically, she changed her profile picture. And in the comments, one particular guy comments, "My wife is so goddamn beautiful." And immediately, because I have ADHD, and thankfully, like a lot of people might call this scary, insecure, or whatever, because of my ADHD, I have this cold ability to immediately draw a line. Like, you do something that betrayed my trust, and this all of a sudden becomes a fracture, and you have just separated and split the earth between us. And I will not have any emotional attachment. I will not have any sadness, remorse, sympathy, empathy, despair, anger, hatred, none of it. I would just be simply DONE. I would just be done. So, I find this guy comment And then her response is, "Oh, babe, love you too." And as soon as I saw that, gone. Done. I had split the earth between us. I had erased everything, and I was simply a clean slate. Now, a lot of people would think this is unhealthy, but here's the thing. I learned to, and at this point in life, I'm almost 29. I'm nearing 29 basically at this point. I had learned to, in all these years I've lived, I have gone back and I've done nothing but, in all my online schooling too, by the way, I have done nothing but reflect. Now, if you're wondering what that means, it just means in moments of quietness, in moments of pure isolation, whatever, I had just looked back at my life and I had just reflected, literally. I had just basically replayed things I remembered throughout life and saw how they made me become the person I am today. So, part of why my ADHD is able to do what it does in that immediate just draw the line done is because when I was 11 or 12, about 11 or 12, even 13, from basically 11 to 13, my dad's parents had passed away. I actually apparently witnessed my grandmother die, but because I was so blissfully ignorant, I wasn't aware that she had died. And the next day, I know it, we're attending her funeral. And I break down, like obviously I'm crying and I'm sad, and it's not like pure agony and distraught, but just like, Grandma's gone, and she's not coming back. And I'm upset. I see them loading the casket and everything, and I can't make sense of it. It's just like, I know she's gone, I'm sad about her being gone, but at the same time, there's like something inside me that is trying to protect my brain, my mental well-being, basically. And then a few years later, my grandpa got severe health issues, and he ends up hospitalized. And so he's laying, obviously in the hospital bed. And my dad and I visit him. It was just me and my dad, and I was young, and I'm feeding basically, the way I remember it is, it was time for my grandpa to eat. It was his last meal. Well, I took it as his last meal. It was time for him to eat. He had a bowl of oatmeal, and he was so weakened by the sickness that I fed him. And it was it was hard because like at the time I was making jokes, I was cracking jokes, I was laughing. But as soon as the visiting hours were, as soon as we were done visiting, I remember we get to the elevator, and my dad's standing in front of it. He's holding my hand. I'm standing here holding his. and I just break down. Like I just couldn't stop. Like I'm not bawling, but I'm just tears just couldn't stop coming out. And and so that was what I took as his last meal, because I remember I think the next day, obviously it probably wasn't his last meal now that I look back, but it feels like I fed him his last meal, and that's always how I took it. But the next day, me and my dad get back to our house. Not this one that we're currently living in, but the one before we moved. My dad and I get back, and he tells me, and I go running outside to tell my brother that Grandpa's gone. But the weird thing is, once we were home, I didn't have that emotional reaction that most people would have. I didn't break down. I didn't cry. I just was like, Grandpa's dead. And that was it. I was almost eerily cold. And this is where things become everything becomes at this point a complex web, right? Like things that make sense and don't make sense. They become this weird complex web, and I'm trying to understand everything, because point A will lead to point B, but then it'll lead to point X, to point Z, to point W, to point M, and nothing is lining up. And you're just you just want everything to flow freely from one point to the next, but nothing's lining up, and it becomes this complete confusion. And during that that long distance relationship with that girl who got pregnant, in that time there was one point I was out running, right? If I can know how to draw a running figure. So I was out running, right? I was texting her on my phone, and I had a revelation. My grandmother's death was extremely hard on me. And in that time, in the time I was doing online schooling, I had been playing a lot more video games, a lot more snacking. Then my grandfather's death happened, and it got worse. And it continued on for so many years, for 10 years. And then I realized finally I had been coping. Not in a way that most people would. I didn't have long-lasting emotional grief. I didn't have mourning. It was in that moment the emotion came out, and then everything became normal again. But I was subconsciously coping with their absence by eating, by playing video games, by isolating myself, and all this kind of stuff. And even today, even when my dogs my 3 dogs died, basically. We had to put them down. All of them. I still have their ashes. Even though all those dogs are gone, yeah, in the moment I grieved, but I got over it scary fast. So, like, only when it happened personally, like when I'm there, it's the only time I actually emotionally react. But, like, we had this one uncle. He died of pancreatic, I think it was pancreatic cancer. We didn't visit him. He was terminal, and you probably can tell also by the sound of my voice, but basically my uncle had passed away, sadly, and my dad was very upset about it. But then I'm just like, when I hear about it, I'm like, oh man, that's just terrible. I'm sorry about that, but I have no real emotional reaction. I'm actually scary cold to the whole thing. Like, it's almost disturbing to a level of coldness I was expressing about the news of him passing away. And it's not just that, it's not that I don't care. It's because of my ADHD, I have trouble regulating those emotions. And it protects my mind from grief and pain because of my grandparent deaths. So by experiencing my grandparent death so personally and intimately, and when I say intimately, obviously it doesn't mean like that, but you get my point. My brain from a young age had decided it needed to protect from that kind of pain again. So whenever there's death mentioned and I'm not there, my brain will shut off those signals, so this way I don't feel grief, pain, and agony from sad news. And it's weird and disturbing as that might sound, that's just the way my brain works. So you can see where things start going like back and forth a lot for me in my head. But over all these years, I've looked back at life, and all the negatives that you would think would break a person down, they have been my driving source. So I've had all these negatives in life, and I've actually taken them and I've turned them into positives. So, and when I say that, this is my take on it, basically. I have negatives happen in my life a majority of the time, more than a lot of people would expect. I've had bullying, I've had physical obstacles, I've had so many things that basically would break a person down and be like, why should I bother anymore? Why should I try? Why should I keep fighting? But somewhere in the high school route, or after the high school route, I decided to take all these negative feelings, the negative occurrences, the bullying, all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to grieve on it. I'm not going to let it negatively impact me. I'm going to turn it into a fuel source. I'm going to turn it into fire. I'm going to turn it into a motivator, something that drives me, pushes me forward. And I took the bullying. I took the emotional reaction from people mocking me and making fun of my weight. And I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong in every way possible. You call me fat, fine. Yeah, I'm fat, whatever. I'm going to show you I can change. You think I'm in bad shape. Okay, sure, whatever. Believe that if you want. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to get in the best damn shape of my life. And basically, when we talk about working out, you're going to say you wish you could keep up with me. So all these negatives, I found a reason and way to turn them into something positive, into a driving source. So when somebody says I can't do something, I'm just like, okay, you just giving me a reason to show you I can. So now, like when they called me other nipples, I thought it was basically them calling me fat, that I couldn't lose the weight, that I was never gonna lose the weight. And I'm like, okay, let me show you that I can. And I turned it into something positive and lost the weight, got into substantial shape, put on muscle weight, all that stuff. And when my dog passed away, I broke my physical plateaus. I was stuck at a specific pace a mile, and all of a sudden I shaved 20-30 seconds off my time every mile, because I took the pain from him, the dog passing away, and turned it into a driving source. When I found out the girl was cheating on me and got pregnant with another guy, I cut her off. I said we were done. And you know what I did? For the next 8 hours, I did a total remodel of our front yard. I put it toward something productive. So the way I take it is, anything negative that happened to me, it's basically water, right? For example, anything negative that happens comes in the form of water. And the positive is basically, in a sense, a sponge. I will soak the water up using the sponge, right? I will break down the negative and turn it into something positive, something to help myself grow, become more beneficial, to become more, to become just a better person overall. So I'll take the negative, turn it into a positive, and then whatever I can't take from this negative and turn into a positive, I would just discard and throw it away as waste. So my analogy is, you can take a negative, soak it up, use it and let it become a lesson to help teach you a lesson in personal development. Let it make you stronger, grow, turn it into a positive. And then when you have everything positive you can take from the pain that is in the water of the negative, the extra you can just throw away as waste. It's a weird, convoluted plan, but it works. In my personal development is, my dog passing away, I took the pain, I put it into something development, I put it into working out, doing something productive, doing something better for myself. Instead of just sitting and wallowing, I did something to drive harder, to say, yeah, I'm experiencing something negative, but I can put that emotion, that energy from the negative into a positive thing and something productive. And that's basically how this analogy comes to fruition, is I take pain, I grow from the pain, turn it into a lesson and convert it into a positive to make myself better. So, and that continued all the way up to today. So I know my story kind of been like haphazard. I'm not going to say I'm a picture perfect storyteller, but long story short is, I have had so many negatives happen to me early on in life that it was hard to see the positive in things. But somewhere in the middle of the road, I found a way to reflect on my negatives, because this is basically just a mirror and I'm reflecting, and I was able to reflect the negative and turn it into actually a positive thing by taking that energy, that emotion from a negative encounter and turn it into something positive. And that's basically it basically became, if you will, the scale, the negatives and the positives. So negative and positive, it's literally like a magnet. If you put two negatives together, they repulse. If you put two positive together, they create a negative. So the only way you can really achieve balance is by having the positive and negatives reflect off each other. So you can take a positive and turn it into something negative by overthinking, but at the same time you can take a negative and turn it into something personally developing by reflecting on it and growing from it. So every negative can be taken as a lesson to become something positive. But if you overthink every positive, you create something negative by creating a sense of insecurity and, all that kind of stuff. A sense of insecurity, a sense of doubt, a sense of confusion, basically. So it's a balancing act, and you just got to find out what's more worth it. Do you want to overthink the positives, or do you want to convert the negatives into something productive? And I've always taken the negatives, though I have also overthought the positive. I've always focused more on taking the negatives and trying to make it into something positive. So that is basically my story on drawing my life. I know it's not the most fluent storytelling, but I do hope you were able to make something of this. And with all that being said, last but not least, don't forget to stay wired. See you in the next one, everybody.